Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel, I'm sharing our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Today is going to be one of 3 different videos that we're doing this month on making corned beef. This one is going to be one that I found from Homesteading Family. I sort of did this recipe a while back, but I didn't really do it. So I'm gonna do it this time, and we're gonna follow the recipe as best as we can with the ingredients that we have, and I'm gonna bring you along and kind of show you how we're doing it. Last time I ended up putting the recipe in the fridge. I kind of used all of my own spices, but this time we're gonna kind of follow it to the best we can, and we're actually gonna leave this out of the fridge. So we're gonna do this as just a salt brine corned beef. We're not using any preserving. We're not using any like the nitrites, the pink salt, the curing salt. We're just doing this old school. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna warm up 2 quarts of water. We are doubling the recipe provided on the website. I will link this site down below. When I made it before, I just watched the video and made it off the video. I didn't realize that there was actually a blog post that accompanied it. So make sure you check, I'll link the blog post. So then you can go ahead and you can print this out for yourself. So it's not gonna be printed it's not gonna be printed down below. It's gonna be, click on the link and then you can visit her site and print that off. So we're gonna be putting 2 quarts of water in here, and we're gonna be putting all of the spices, and that is going to be peppercorns, mustard seed. We didn't have enough mustard seed, so it's actually gonna be about half mustard seed, half ground mustard, 2 sticks of cinnamon, whole allspice, coriander seed, whole cloves, ground ginger, and then garlic powder. And then it calls for thyme, but we're out of time, so we're not gonna use that. We're out of time. And then we're also gonna be using bay leaves. So we're gonna put all of that along with the salt, which is gonna be, for our doubling of the recipe, 2 cups of salt. It's basically, you're curing it with salt. So we got our 2 quarts of water. We're gonna be putting all of our pre-measured spices in here. And then 4 cinnamon sticks and some bay leaves. And then we're gonna add in 2 cups of salt. And the recipe calls for sea salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt because that's just what I have on hand. It says to heat and stir until the salt is dissolved. So you don't need to bring this up to a boil. You just need to heat it up enough just to melt the salt. And the only reason for that, you can bring it up to a boil. There's nothing gonna be wrong with that. It's just gonna be a bit harder to actually cool it down. For this particular recipe, we are gonna be curing it inside of this bucket. There are a lot of, you can use any vessel you can find that will fit what you are brining. You can use it with, I don't think you wanna use metal, but that's about the only exception. You can use plastic like we are using here, and that's because that's what I have access to. You can also use a crock, and that one is over here. Glass is definitely best, but we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna use what we actually have. While that is warming up, we're gonna go ahead and get the bucket ready. We're gonna get the beef ready, and we're just gonna get it ready to pour it over it. If you have any intention of consuming this raw, which I do, you're gonna wanna make sure that the beef is frozen for at least 2 weeks to kill off any possible parasites or anything like that, and then you're gonna thaw it out. It doesn't matter so much if you're not gonna be consuming it raw, but this is from a cow that I actually got last year, so it's been frozen for probably 2 years, almost 2 years. Okay, so we're just gonna cut it out of the bag here. We want to make sure that our hands are clean and we're giving it, every possible chance of a safe ferment, or safe cure. We're not fermenting. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and just rinse this guy off. So all we're gonna do with this is I'm just gonna kind of cut it into a bit more manageable size pieces, just to make it more manageable. That's the only reason. You don't have to. You can totally leave this whole. But I do want to make sure that since I'm going to be fermenting this, I keep saying fermenting. Since I'm going to be curing this at room temperature, I want to make sure that want to make sure that the cure is getting to the center of this the best possible. And I figure probably cutting it up into, I'm probably cut this up into like 3 or 4 chunks, and then making sure that that can actually penetrate inside the meat. Like here. That is a big chunk of fat. So I think I'll probably cut some of that off. And I weighed this ahead of time. This is just over 10 pounds. And the recipe calls for 4 to 5 pound beef briskets. So if we might have to add a little bit extra water to cover these. And that's another reason to kind of cut this down, is that it, you just spread it around in there better. These are not even, as you can well see. Okay, so I think I'm gonna cut some of these off. We wanna have some meat, some fat, but we don't wanna have too much. Because if I cut them off at this stage, I can render that down and make tallow. But if I wait until it's cured, not so much. I mean, I guess you could, but it would be corned beef flavored tallow, which probably might not be a bad idea, actually. Not what I want, but somebody might enjoy that. I think that's good enough. So we have this off the burner. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna add in exactly the same amount of water, and we'll see what the temperature is. We need to make sure that it is cool enough that it will not even warm up the beef, basically. We wanna make sure that it's that it's basically room temperature, sorry. I have the brine in my eyeball and it hurts. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add the extra water to this. I'll bring you back when it is the correct temperature, which is basically between room temperature and body temperature is all you want. You want to make sure it is not warm. If it's warm, you can risk cooking the outside of this, and the curing process will not be a proper one. It will not be a safe one. So you got to make sure you do it. Make sure it's cool enough. We've got the brine cool off enough. I think it was 84 degrees, which is perfectly fine. So now we're going to pour about half of it in the bucket. I was hoping you'd be able to see that. Let's bring you in a little closer, shall we? All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the beef inside of here. I think we're gonna put the bigger pieces in first. And you want to put about half of the brine in here first, because that's going to make sure there's not any air pockets on the bottom. That's kind of the idea behind that. Sweet, I think I can fit it all in a mostly single layer. Perfect, okay. We're gonna have to find something to weigh this down. I'm thinking some kind of a plate or a heavy weight. I could even do a second bucket and fill it up with water. You can do a Ziploc bag. You can fill it up with like salt or salt water, something like that. Just anything that can hold this underneath the brine. You really wanna make sure, especially because it's meat, you wanna be extra careful with this. And you wanna make sure that you're keeping it under the brine. Make sure you're keeping it extra safe. So I'm gonna go ahead and sort out something that I'm gonna do to hold this under the brine, and I will bring you back and show you what I end up with. First up is this, it's a 9-inch pie plate. So we got our brine. I filled this up with just a brine. I didn't measure it, but it's, you know, just basically the same, I don't have a clue what ratio it is. I didn't, I'll pretend I know what I did, but I just dumped salt in a bag and filled it up with water. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on top, and this should hold it underneath the brine. As you can see here, it will hold the meat underneath the brine. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna put our lid on it to make sure that nothing will get into it, and we're gonna set this at room temperature for 3 to 5 days. We're gonna make sure that we're opening this up. We're gonna be, it says to rotate it every day. It says turn in the meat every day or 2. So that's what we're gonna do. We're done with this part of it. And so this is gonna be room temperature. If you're uncomfortable with doing it at room temperature, you can put it in the fridge for 10 days. It takes longer to cure when you're doing it in the refrigerator. So I guess it is sort of like almost like a fermentation where it slows down in the fridge. So yeah, we'll see in a bit. Ready to take a peek inside. Show you, there's no funky smell, there's no mold, there's nothing weird. We're all good in the hood here, okay? So now we're gonna go ahead and we are gonna pull this out of the bin here. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention, I had this out room temperature for 4 days, and then I just didn't have the time to deal with it, so I put it in the fridge, and that's where it's been for 2 more days. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna bust into this guy. Okay, so we're just gonna pull all of this out, deal with it appropriately. We're gonna rinse it off, and then we're gonna give this thing a taste test. Raw. There we go. Okay. Get our plate out. Oh, it looks fantastic. There we go. It's not going to have that vibrant, bright pink color that one cured with nitrites has, because it's not cured with nitrites and there's none of that pink icky dye in it. It's not going to be like that pop of the pink. So I'm going to rinse this off and grab a cutting board. Let's go ahead and cut into this guy. Clearly I did not do a good job of trimming this. There we go. Oh gosh, this is like all fat. Okay, let's try cutting into the other side, shall we? Okay, so that's a good enough piece. You can kind of see here. So now we're gonna go ahead and eat this guy. I'm gonna do a taste test. Unbelievably delicious. The only bad side to eating it raw is it takes forever to chew it. But other than that, this stuff is so delicious. Oh my gosh. So you can cook this if you're squeamish about it being raw. You don't have to consume it raw. That's just the traditional way of consuming it raw. And that's where you're gonna get the most benefits from it. I have one other recipe that's coming up. It'll probably be the day after tomorrow for when you see this one. But it's gonna be, this whole week is just gonna be, I don't know, corned beef day, basically, or corned beef week. You know, it's leading up to it. Thursday is St. Patrick's Day. So I figured that why not just go ahead and do a whole bunch of corned beef stuff. So we're gonna do some other corned beef recipes. Even after St. Patrick's Day, there's gonna be another one that's gonna be up, that's gonna be the nitrite type. So I have this one, which is salt cured. I have another one that is actually lacto fermented, and then the third one is nitrite preserved. So 3 different ways of preserving it. There's also gonna be a couple of recipes that are gonna be thrown in there. We're gonna be cooking this up. We're gonna be preparing it at a meal. I already have one video that is a pantry style corned beef and hash. I'm gonna be doing one that's like corned beef, cabbage, sauerkraut type thing. And then one's gonna be like, we're gonna make like a Reuben sandwich. We're gonna be doing all kinds of stuff with these. So the way that you can preserve these in the fridge, you can leave them in the salt brine, and that's shouldn't be a problem. I think it'll just kind of continue to cure. So if you want to hang on to it, just leave it in here in the fridge, and it will not continue to age quickly. It might continue to age at a slow rate. I'm not sure how salt curing works. That's not my strong suit, but I'm pretty sure you could definitely keep it in there and it'll help it to last longer. If you don't want to have the big giant bucket in your fridge, you could put it inside of some like a 2-gallon Ziploc bag. Just grab one of those. You could put it inside of a 1 gallon, depending. I mean, not everybody's going to have a giant 10-pound roast. So if you have a normal sized roast, you could put it inside of a Ziploc bag. Just throw some of the salt brine in there, and that'll help keep it nice and fresh for longer. Otherwise, you could put this in there and like wrap it up in just a Ziploc bag, and I think it'll last for probably about 2 weeks, I've been told, in the fridge, and you'll be perfectly safe with it. So this is definitely something. It's a big amount of corned beef, especially with the other two that are coming for me. So we're gonna have a ton of corned beef recipes. It is gonna be corned beef central up in here, very least in my house for the next couple of weeks. Two things that I think I forgot to kind of cover a little bit in here. Also with regards to storage, you can put this in the freezer. You can easily put this in the freezer. I would probably cut off as much of the fat as you can, and then you can just throw it in the, well, actually, I don't think that actually matters. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can just put this in a Ziploc bag, suck out all the air, use a vacuum sealer if you have it available to you, because air is the enemy when you're freezing. But just package this up like you would any other kind of meat, and you can just put it in the freezer, and I would freeze it in portion sizes. Like if you have, if it's just you and you're just using this for sandwiches, you might want to cut it up and put it in like small bags. And if it's you and a family and you're using this as like a roast for dinner, just throw it in a big gallon Ziploc bag, and then you're good to go. Also, when you're cooking this, you can, it's pretty salty the way that this way of doing it. If you want to cook it, most people tend to boil it for a long time. I'm not sure exactly how long, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a fair amount of time. And that tends to be what most people do with it. I will be having videos, like I said, coming up later in the week, and we will be cooking one of these. We'll probably be cooking the nitrite one. I'm not comfortable consuming the nitrite one raw. We'll probably be doing that, and I'll show you that process. So stay tuned for that one. I just don't want to make each video too super long, and since that process applies to all three of the corned beef recipes, I will be putting that one up separate so it applies to all of them. I'm gonna go and eat me some breakfast because this corned beef looks delicious, and I still have an hour and a half before I have to be at work. So I'm gonna enjoy this time with my corned beef. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you benefited from it. I hope it inspired you to go ahead and make some corned beef. If you do it today, you have time to make it and it'll be ready before St. Patrick's Day. You don't have to, you can let it go for anywhere from 3 to 5 days, and you can let it go a little bit longer if you want to. If you want to put it in the fridge, you're gonna let it go for about 10 days. It'll just take longer to work in the fridge. At the warmer temperatures, it works faster. That's kind of just how those sorts of things work. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider giving it a thumbs up. It helps with all the googly algorithmic stuff. If you're new around here, I like to do all kinds of food preservation videos, canning, freezing, dehydrating, fermenting, meat curing, as well as how to cook all of these preserved foods. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you click the subscribe button right here. It's all kinds of good fun times. Up here is a video Mr. Google Pants thinks that you're gonna enjoy. This is another corned beef recipe that I made before, and then this one up here is gonna be a playlist. I can't decide which one I wanna put there, so I'll decide in a moment. So I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.